Sneakers and Cleats, the podcast.
Welcome back to the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. It is Thursday, April 18th. This is episode 93. I'm Matt Roy, back in better than ever after a elongated vacation.
We'll see about the better than ever part, Matt.
Yeah, my liver's not as good as it was before I left, but everything else is fine. Went to Vegas, went to Nash Vegas, and now I'm home. So
Did you lose some hearing?
Did I lose
Sounds
hearing?
like you're talking louder than
I'm excited to be here.
What was the
Bob.
weather like in Nashville?
It was actually a little cold.
Yeah.
It was a little cold. It was rainy, but the wedding we went to was inside. It was lovely. Congratulations to both of the happy couples that we went to weddings for. First wedding was Haley and Hunter in Vegas. Second wedding was Morgan and Matthew.
You're at that
Nashville.
age
Which
where
one was
all
better?
your friends are getting married.
Every other weekend, it seems.
Which
Yeah.
wedding was better?
Which
Rank-
wedding was better?
Rank them.
They were very different. They were very different weddings.
So
One
politically-
was
so
plated.
politically.
One was
Come
more
on, man.
hors d'oeuvre. You know, it was nice.
One
both
was
ways.
expensive and one was
I
cheap.
love everyone.
Well, the one that was hors d'oeuvre was at Mandalay Bay, so I don't know if it was cheap.
Oh, that's not it. No, it's not cheap. It's not cheap.
But anyway, happy to be back. Thank you, Zach, for filling in while we were away. Listened to both of them. Wonderful conversation on the Spurs. A lot of stuff happening. We got a lot going on today. Victor Wembanyama is getting some hype for Defensive Player of the Year, which is a little bit unexpected since Rudy Gobert is such a favorite. But we'll talk about a couple of people who have already announced that they're going to be voting for Victor Wembanyama for first place in Defensive Player of the Year. Plus, The Ringer just came out with an exclusive interview with Wemby. Wemby had some interesting things to say, including the fact that maybe people have already reached out to him to team up here in the Alamo City. That'll perk some ears up, that's for sure. Plus, CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons are not at voluntary OTAs. Big deal or not? You be the judge. But first, as always, number 93. We start with our number game. Not very many good 93s. A couple of great ones, but not very, notable ones. Dwight Freeney, for everyone in Indianapolis, 125.5 sacks, Hall of Famer. John Randall of Vikings lore.
Texas A&I Javelina.
There you go. That's what we rely on Don for to come up with the obscure colleges. Calais Campbell, 105.5 sacks. He'll probably be in the Hall of Fame. And then did you know the Meta World piece was 93?
Did not remember that.
Yeah, 93. I think he was with the Kings, 06, 07, 08. So what I remember 93 for, though, is the Cowboys beating the ever-loving crap out of the Bills.
I was there.
You were there for the Michael Jackson halftime show, too?
Yep.
How was that? Was that in ranking of halftime shows?
When you're in the building, it's never great. I can't remember I think I've been to 10 Super Bowls. I can't remember a one that wasn't better, that when you finally see it on TV, it was much better. Because the place is so big.
Mm-hmm.
Katy Perry came in from the roof on a horse or something.
Wasn't that Lady Gaga? Lady Gaga came in from the roof.
Katy Perry was on a big old horse.
Yeah, that was later in the show. You're
yeah.
right. You're right.
Yeah, and we couldn't see it, but you see it on TV, it's very impressive. The whole wardrobe malfunction with
Justin Timberlake
and Janet Jackson, had no idea that it even happened when you're in the building. So
they're definitely made for TV events.
Yeah, the one that I wanted to be at was Prince in Miami in the rain, and was not at that Super Bowl.
Purple Rain.
But yeah, Michael Jackson was great at the time. Yeah, but that Super Bowl was just so fantastic.
It was also over before it started.
Yes, yes.
That final score ended up being 52-17.
Correct.
Troy Aikman, Super Bowl MVP. Emmitt Smith was the regular season MVP, not of technically that year, but the year following, since it was in 93. For baseball, the Rockies and the Marlins played their inaugural seasons in 93. The Marlins have subsequently won 2 World Series, and the Rockies don't know what the playoffs look like. So that's nice. Chuck's Blue Jays defeated the Phillies in 6 games, 4-2. Joe Carter hit a walk-off home run to end the series. The second time in MLB history that the World Series ended on a walk-off hit. Can you name the first, Don?
No, I can't.
I did not put it on the rundown because I wanted to quiz you.
Give me the decade.
The 60s. Early 60s.
Not Mazeroski.
Yes.
It was Mazeroski's home run.
Damn, see, look at you. That's pretty good.
Yeah, Pittsburgh.
Bill Mazeroski, Game 7. Pirates defeat the Yankees. Only walk-off Game 7 home run in the World Series.
All right.
So, fun fact for everyone out there. And then in basketball, of course, this is the Final year of the first three-peat for the Bulls. They defeated the Charles Barkley Suns 4-2. That was the infamous John Paxson game. When Phil Jackson's like, "Who's open?" Pax. Well, get it to him then. So he got it to Pax and he made the shot.
And little known fact, from the summer of '92 and the Dream Team through that entire regular season and even in the postseason, Charles Barkley was the best player on planet Earth. He was better than Michael Jordan. He carried the Suns that year. He was by far the best player on the Dream Team that summer, along with David Robinson and Michael Jordan and all those guys. But, people remember Michael. Of course, he's the greatest player of all time or whatever, and that was the end of his three-peat. But Charles was the best player. And here's another thing. In 2004, similarly, Manu Ginobili, leading Argentina over the U.S., through the 2005 finals when he should have been MVP against the Pistons, or could have been, Manu Ginobili was the best player on planet Earth, despite Tim Duncan and others being Kobe and all them. It's like a golfer who gets in a groove and wins 3 or 4 tournaments or wins Player of the Year like Nick Price did in the 90s, where he was in the top 10 every week. And just Manu and Charles had those grooves for about a year. Not much longer than that, where they could actually claim they were the best player on the planet.
I might be on the in the minority here, but I believe that if Charles Barkley didn't win the MVP that year, that the Suns might have beaten the Bulls and the Bulls might not have won because it gives you so much motivation.
And Michael lived Jordan for that kind of motivation.
And he did the same thing with Karl Malone later on against the Jazz. I mean, if he's not slighted and he has nothing to motivate him, if nobody ever talked to Michael Jordan, I don't think he would have been as great as he was. But anytime anyone said anything, he ended up just putting it on the bulletin board. So
I'll never forget being at the Hall of Fame when he was inducted, because David Robinson was inducted at the same time. Michael Jordan's speech was like the worst speech of all time, because all he did was talk about grudges the entire time.
Mm-hmm.
There was not a lot of gratitude, not a lot of thank yous, but it was, I knew I was better than you, and I knew I was better than you, and I knew I was better than you. He flew the guy that beat him out for the last spot on the varsity in high school. He flew him to the Hall of Fame and sat him in a really good seat so that he could talk about him in his speech, and said, "You shouldn't have beat me out for that."
I'm just happy that he gave us the crying Jordan meme. I've been living on that for years.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to some content here. So Wemby is Rudy Gobert. He's a huge favorite. I think he's minus 3,000. He's come down a little bit, actually. But with ballots due this week for player award, Wemby has actually started game a little bit of steam. Yeah. Chris Broussard on FS1 earlier this week said this.
He may not win it. It's going to be interesting to see how this goes. But I got Wemby winning it. I got Wemby at number 1. Joe Bear at number 2. This would be his 4th. I think Joe Bear probably wins it. And AD number 3. And look, to me, when I look at the numbers and obviously watching the games, the only reason not to pick Wemby is the team was bad.
Can you tell that Chris Broussard? Can you tell that Chris Broussard and Avery Johnson are from the exact same zip code in New Orleans?
I don't know if we can trust someone who pronounces it Joe Bear, but that's a little besides the point. Mike Greenberg of ESPN also on his show Greeny this week said he was going to vote Wemby the Defensive Player of the Year. He's got at least 2 votes, and he should be.
Well, here's the problem. Gobert is going to be on everybody's ballot, either 1, 2, or 3.
100%.
They add up all the points.
If Wemby's not on everyone's ballot, though, what the hell are they getting a vote for?
Yeah, well, we do look at things through black and silver colored lenses.
It's true.
But there's a lot of people that will look at the record and being a rookie. He's going to finish second. And that's great for a rookie. He's going to be first team all defense. That's unbelievable. And then he's going to be he's going to be the rookie of the year and first team all rookie. I mean, it's going to be fantastic. I think he should win rookie of the year the defensive player of the year based on his stocks. But
steals and blocks for anyone who does
steals and blocks combined. Yeah, he wins by over 100 or right at 100. But yeah, he's a rookie.
My thing is, like, if you took blind resumes and you just looked at
Yeah.
AD compared to Rudy Gobert compared to Victor Wembanyama,
Didn't look at team success.
Didn't look at team success.
Yeah, he'd win.
He win 100% of the time. It's not even close. Like when you
But
take
the Spurs were like dead last in defensive rating.
but when you take him off the floor, they're the worst team defensively of all time.
Yeah.
Like the fact that I think it's a +7 is what they were when he was on the floor as compared to off the floor. It makes them middle of the pack defensively.
And he
as
just
compared
kept getting
to
better. He averaged 6 blocks a game.
I saw someone's argument today. I forgot who it was, that they can't vote for Wemby for Defensive Player of the Year because of the 18-game losing streak that the Spurs had. How can you be a Defensive Player of the Year when you have an 18-game losing streak? Well, it's because you were playing a point guard that didn't deserve to be a point guard, and that had nothing to do with Wemby's defense.
People don't look that deep dive. But yeah, you're right.
Well, why do they have votes then? That's my question. Like, why do these people have votes if they're not watching the damn games?
They go with the narrative. You know, things get popular and people just go with the narrative.
Wemby's defensive numbers, if you switched Wemby and Rudy Gobert, he had the same defensive numbers he has right now on the Timberwolves. They would be talking about this being one of the best defensive seasons of all time.
Yeah, and it's going to come. It's going to come.
It will, but I mean, it's just frustrating seeing like not getting his due when he deserves it.
Speaking of not getting his due, this is a great time to remind people. You know, when you see Steph Curry get knocked out of the playoffs, and when you see Blake Griffin retire with 6 All-NBAs and whatever, 6 All-Star games that he made, Tim Duncan, you ready for this? Tim Duncan was first team All-NBA as a rookie. Name another. You won't find any. Tim Duncan was All-NBA 15 times. He was All-Defense 15 times. Look for anybody with those numbers. You won't find any.
Preach.
Larry Bird was like All-NBA 8 times and All-Defense like none. Magic, none. Michael was like 6. Tim Duncan was All-NBA 15 times and All-Defense 15 times.
Whenever you start getting off on Tim Duncan, I just back off. I don't want to interrupt.
I feel like I went to church.
I know. Amen.
I mean, he's so underappreciated.
Yeah, since we're there right now, can you just give me 30 seconds on? I took it off the rundown. I was going to keep it on, but then the Ringer stuff came out. Give me 30 seconds on the people who are saying that Steph and this Warriors team is a better trio than the Spurs team is. Because I've heard that all week after they got eliminated. Oh, this dynasty that the Warriors have is a better dynasty than the Spurs. It's a better trio than the Spurs had. Just you go.
Here's the thing about the Spurs. Okay, you ready for this? We talked about, Steph missing the playoffs, and remember the Warriors last few years in order to get Wiseman and whoever they got in the draft. They won like 20 games like 2 years in a row. Tim Duncan, and then people are celebrating all over the league. You look at Twitter and you look at these franchises that are going, whether it was the Timberwolves or somebody. We won 50 games, celebrating a 50-win season. I've seen all these tweets from the actual Twitter accounts from the organizations celebrating. This is what a 50-win season looks like. Tim Duncan did not win 50 games. He played 18 years in the league, 19 years in the league, whatever it was. He won 50 games every year, every single year. He never did not make the playoffs. Steph Curry didn't make the playoffs. He made the playoffs every single year. So even though they only won, they win 99, 03, 05, 07. But they were there in 06. They were there in 04. They were there in 08. They were there in 09. They were there in 10.
13.
They were there in
one shot away in 13.
In 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. They were always knocking on the door. It's hard to win championships. Look at Giannis. Giannis is, finding that out. He's got 1 8 years in, 10 years in. Tim was knocking on the door all the time. Tim Duncan's career lasted twice as long as Magic and Larry's. Magic won 5 championships, but he won them all in 10 years. Tim Duncan was like Kareem. His first championship and his last championship were like 17 years apart. So there's something to be said for longevity, and not just longevity, but greatness over longevity. No one won more regular season games than Tim. No one won more playoff games than Tim. They throw in like guys like Robert Horry or Derek Fisher, these guys that were riding on the bus, but Tim was driving the bus. And when you look at all the numbers, he's the winningest player of all time. Him and Manu.
I have nothing to add. I love getting you on that tangent because it's just facts the entire time. It's
I always
straight facts.
Simplify it this way. If Tim Duncan played his career in Boston or New York, he would be ahead of Michael and ahead of LeBron. They would be calling him the greatest player of all time.
Let's get back to Wemby real quick. So something that came out this morning, I believe, the Ringer's Kevin O'Connor had a great little exclusive conversation with Wemby. It's a 49-minute video. You can see it on YouTube. We'll play a little bit of it here. And some interesting things came out of it, one of which is how Wemby looks at his season as a whole and how he looks at being nominated for all these awards and possibly even winning Rookie of the Year, maybe even Defensive Player of the Year.
Are you surprised by how much success has come early for you? I mean, all NBA, all D, potentially Defensive Player of the Year, all of this. Are you surprised at all?
No, I wouldn't say surprised because to me it's impossible to be surprised by by your own performance, good or bad, because it's ultimately everything is a result of your own work and your mentality. So I always want more.
Don, I think that kind of just goes to his mentality when it comes to his own expectations of himself, right? I mean, he obviously, his expectations for himself are higher than anybody else's for him.
I believe that's true.
And so when he comes out and he wins Rookie of the Year, if he doesn't win Defensive Player of the Year, I'm sure he'll be like, well, damn, I should have. Like, what could I have done? Not, those voters, but what could I have done to put myself in a better position to win those things?
You know what's so cool? I noticed this way back when we met him at the draft. He has the same thing that Tim Duncan had as being a basketball nerd. Tim Duncan knew all of Kareem's stats, all of Wilt's stats. They were important to him. Championships, all NBA stuff. Wemby's like that too. He's a geek. When you listen to Wemby talk about hoops, he's a geek on the history. He's a geek on accomplishments. He's a geek on moves and the fundamentals and the basics of basketball. He lives, eats, breathes basketball. He's not just a basketball player. It's his life. And Tim was that way too. And that's a little comparison.
It is. And to that point, you'll see in that conversation, if you guys watch it, Kevin O'Connor knows basketball as well. He did a great job with this interview. And they asked Wemby, like, what can you improve on? And he's like, well, KD has this little hesitation, this little move that I'm going to be working on this summer, this defensive thing I'm going to be working on this summer. He's always trying to improve. He's trying to get people's moves. He's trying to do this, do that to make sure that he stays one step ahead of the competition.
And all the crazy plays that we say, you've never seen anybody do that. They don't just happen. He in this interview, he goes into detail about, guarding the pick and roll and then being late for the alley-oop over to Chet and leaving early and even though I had my back to the basket, I knew that's where he's a detail-oriented guy into, the Sham God move and all those kind of things that we see him do. Those he does have a lot of innate things, but he also works on all of that.
Those don't just happen by surprise.
Right.
Like it's all practiced in the lab somewhere. And to that point, even more as they keep going, and Wemby continues to get better, people are going to want to play with him. And that might already be happening. Another part of that interview with Kevin O'Connor on The Ringer, again, you can find that whole thing on YouTube. It's about 49 minutes long. He said this really interesting thing about people already possibly calling him to team up.
It is going to be very interesting to see how soon things are accelerated there, because I'm sure players also recognize that too. Does anybody talk to you about teaming up already?
I've received some messages, even from prospects, but I try to stay in my role and but it's yeah, it's a whole new world it's a whole new world, and that I'm eager to discover. But for sure, one day or the other, I have to be involved in this, I guess.
The last line got me. One day I'll have to be involved in this. I think that means the player acquisition part of it, the recruiting part of it. To me, that makes it sound like he's not already a part of it. He doesn't want to be a part of it yet.
They have talked to him, and he picked his brain about the French prospects in the draft. I do not believe they have talked to him about Trae Young or any of these possible names that you see being thrown out about adding to the mix. They didn't really, and Tim didn't. Tim wasn't LeBron or Giannis. Giannis traded Drew Holiday to the Celtics and got Dame Lillard. That was Giannis.
It's not working out very well either.
And the team did it for him. Tim always sat back and let the guys do their job. Now, there were times when they consulted Tim, because a lot of times they had to have Tim restructure his contract so they could afford Richard Jefferson or somebody like that they would bring in. And that they consult with. I know they did with Jason. Consulted with Tim when they brought in Jason Kidd, and considered him and offered him, but he didn't take when they had Tony Parker already. Tim was consulted. They will consult with Wemby. I got the sense from hearing that soundbite that they haven't done that yet with veterans, but maybe these draft prospects.
How different is that from the way that they've operated in the past? I mean, they've had, like you said, you just went on your Tim Duncan glory tour and rant there, because Tim Duncan is a top 10, unequivocally a top 10 player of all time, maybe even top 5 player of all time. But he didn't necessarily want that. He didn't require that kind of stuff. Kawhi did. And you've said all along that they have learned from the mistakes that they made with Kawhi, or learned from the personality that Kawhi had. How different is Wemby now? Maybe his talent level, how different is how they're going to treat the future with Wemby here?
Well, I don't think they cared what Kawhi thought about their the pieces around him. Kawhi was not a team player. Kawhi didn't operate within the confines of quote unquote being a Spur. Going outside the team for his medical help and not being around the team, training and rehabbing while the team was playing. He really offended Tim, Tony, and Manu. Really offended Manu and Tony late. They were way over him.
Just Tim in that way then.
But I think the Spurs learned from the Kawhi situation in that they maybe didn't understand that some players might be worth bending your own culture for if it means continuing to win. At the time, I don't think they were going to budge from their culture. And quite honestly, I don't think they should have, because of the way that Kawhi acted. But with Wemby, I think they go into it from the very beginning, before he even was drafted, with getting to know mom and dad, getting to know, hiring his physio guy to be a part of the organization, including everything, knowing that in 4 or 5 years, he's going to make this decision of whether he's going to stay here long term. So I think they've nurtured that relationship. I think that's something that they learned from Kawhi. But I think, like Tim, Wemby obviously wants to have input. He's not going to want to have a say. He's not going to be like, get this guy. He's a really cool kid, and he trusts the organization implicitly. But you can tell they're going to ask me, and I'm going to need to know who's going to fit best around me.
Kind of what direction we're going.
Yeah.
Do you think it's also the Spurs kind of learning how to handle this generation of player? Because this generation of players saw LeBron, D-Wade, and Bosh team up. They saw Kevin Durant go to the Warriors. They saw all these moves in the player movement, player empowerment era.
Yeah.
Do you think it's also the Spurs learning, okay, maybe the exact culture we had when David and Tim were here isn't going to fit right now, but we can work it in?
Yeah. Yeah, I think you and Pop, nobody's been more flexible than Pop. I mean, Pop has completely changed his coaching style.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the Kawhi debacle was part of the learning curve of all of that. I still side with the Spurs doctors, and the Spurs organization. They did nothing wrong in that situation, but they learned what could happen if you stick to your guns, whether you're right or wrong. The bottom line is they chose to lose over blowing up our culture for one guy, and I think that's admirable.
Bob, you have something to add?
You said Pop has changed his coaching style, right? Is it better?
I think it's I don't know if it's better or worse. I just don't think you can have it. There's no alternative. If you kept your old coaching style with this generation, nobody would play for you. It's the kids are too soft. The skin is too thin to criticism. I mean, this is a generation that's grown up being told how great they are. These kids never played high school basketball. A lot of them, for teams that matter, they play AAU, and they jumped around to AAU teams where they were always the best player. They've never had accountability and been a part of a team. And I've never known a team to win that didn't have. And you know what's great? Pop built that on this losing team.
Mm-hmm.
You could see they won 22 games. At the end of the year, you could see that they loved each other. They loved Devontae Graham getting his chance to play and win. They had it was like a high school team.
Yeah.
No team has ever won a championship that didn't have that kind of camaraderie. And so I personally, Bob, I was upset many times this year. And I talked to guys like Malik Rose. I've talked to guys like Sean Elliott, who said, if I did what Jeremy did, I wouldn't have played for a month, And remember, he benched Jeremy and he benched Keldon within a couple of days.
Like a week. Yeah.
Right. And they were back on the court the next day or whatever. And, it's weird. They have such thin skin, and, to Pop's credit, he's learned how to bend his, I don't know if it's better or worse. I don't think you have a choice.
Do you think that might be one of the reasons we were so surprised this year, how few wins they had? Is that Pop is changing his coaching style and he's adapting as well, and maybe not the coach he used to be until he gets this whole thing down?
Like, I said the same thing. I was like, 20 games into this thing, it's like, at what point is Pop going to have a team meeting and say, give the big guy the dang ball now, right? But same thing. People said, tell Wemby, quit shooting threes and get inside. But the genius of Pop, you got to let the kid learn the lesson for himself.
Yeah.
Because if it's all you and he wants to play outside, then he's resentful of you. But if he learns on his own that he's not an outside player and his numbers go to the toilet, and then you start posting him up and move him inside and his numbers start going up, he starts having success, then he learns it on his own. And that's the way I think it was with Jeremy and Devin and all these guys that weren't passing.
Kind of like you just got to let your kids fail to see.
You got to let them fail.
Real quick on the way out, I want to get to the Cowboys things real fast. So CeeDee Lamb, Micah Parsons missing the offseason program. Micah missed last year, so I don't think that's really a big deal. CD not being there, I think, is interesting. Do you think it's something or nothing with that CD's not there?
Nothing. He wasn't there last year. He was in Austin training. Same thing.
Do you think it speaks to the what's the word I'm looking for?
Lack of culture.
Lack of culture, but also lack of I don't know, accountability, I guess, on the management, that they haven't gotten any of these deals done yet?
I don't know. I can't figure what they're doing.
I don't think they know what they're doing.
I'm buying into that theory that the Cowboys are the third or fourth most profitable venture that they have in oil and gas and other things, and that they're totally looking at the bottom line. They make the same exact amount of money whether they spend more money in the salary cap and win, or whether they go 8-8. So why waste the money when you can make the same amount of profit?
Well, as we learned today, Jerry Jones is spending that money in Arkansas. So did you see that?
Oh yeah, NIL money.
Yeah, NIL money. He's given John Calipari his salary and giving him a boatload of NIL money to recruit over to Arkansas.
He and the Tyson chicken guy.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's why John Calipari left Kentucky, because he's got $40 million backing him to buy players.
He was playing golf with the Tyson chicken guy 3 days before he got the job, and the Tyson chicken guy gave him $6 million in NIL money.
So that's all we got for you today on the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. I did want to ask Don. So today is Viva Fiesta. It's first day of Fiesta here in San Antonio. So happy Fiesta to everybody.
Happy Fiesta.
Louise hates it, but that's okay. Fiesta. We're not gonna talk to the Fiesta grouch. Don, real quick, do you have a favorite Fiesta memory? You've been here forever, so do you have a favorite Fiesta memory?
Oh, the food at Nyosa is my memory. Maria's tortillas, Ayacucho's, Mr. Chicken, beer, Cowboy Klops, beignets. Nyosa's awesome. I love Fiesta. The only thing I hate about Fiesta is the cascarones.
Yeah. Jordan, so
They
Jordan,
crack them on your head, but they end up in your crack. I hate that. They itch your neck and all that stuff.
Jordan had one cracked on her head last year when she was on air.
Yeah.
And the little confetti pieces, somehow 2 months later, we found in our washer. I was just like,
Oh, they
how
get
did that
everywhere.
even make it? How did that even get there? Bob, do you have a favorite Fiesta food?
Oh yeah, chicken and stick. It's easy.
Chicken on a stick guy? Are you
Yeah.
a chicken on a stick guy?
It's really good. Mr. Chicken, you're talking about the fried chicken. I'll stick with the
Yeah.
jalapeno on top.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
As long as it's a spicy chicken on a stick, I can do it. They dipped in the jalapeno juice and put the
Well,
jalapeno
no,
on
they
top.
put a jalapeno on top.
Yeah, they do that
then you
as well.
squeeze-
Yeah.
Yeah, as
But-
long as it's spicy, I'm good. The basic one is
It's
Excuse
top
me.
three.
What's
It's top three. Anticuchos, which is like a shish kebab with a
Mhm.
vinegar chimichurri glaze on it. Those are delicious. But number one Fiesta food of all time is Maria's tortillas. It's the longest line at Nyosa. It's all of these old ladies patting out fresh corn masa on comals, grilling them hot. They take them off hot, put them on a piece of paper, take a handful of cheddar cheese and a stick of butter. They put the butter on there, and then they put the handful of cheese and close it shut and melts. Oh,
one of my
gosh,
first
it's so simple, but
Fiesta.
it's a heart attack.
One of my first Fiesta experiences. I went, and this is on our way out right now. So went with Yuli last year. One of our photographers, Ulysses Romero, now works in Dallas. We went, and he was like, we got a couple of tacos, and he gave it to me. He's like, I know that's a good taco before even tasting it. I was like, why? He's like, look who's making it.
Yeah.
He was like, it's mi tia right there. I was like, oh, okay. So if it's not some, older Latino woman, he doesn't trust it. So
that's
I get
Maria's
it.
tortillas, man.
I get it.
and they're hot right when you get them, and it's unbelievable.
No, I can't wait to get some food in me. So staying away from the liquid, though. Vegas has still got me. That's all we got for you today on the Sneakers and Cleats podcast. Remember to download, rate, review, subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, tell a friend, tell an enemy. We'll go over some draft stuff next Monday. Draft is a week from today. We'll see who the Cowboys mess up this time. We'll be right back here on Monday. Until then, everyone have a good weekend.